Ladies, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, squinting at your scalp and wondering, when exactly did my hair turn into a suggestion? Because same. I had this moment not long ago standing in the bathroom, under those brutally honest lights, brushing my hair and thinking, well, there's volume, just not where I want it. Here's the thing, no one tells you once you hit your 60s. Thinning hair doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, but chances are you've been styling it in a way that actually makes it look thinner. Most of us grew up in the era of, the bigger the hair, the closer to God, right? So we tease, we spray, we layer on product like it's frosting. But if you've got thin hair over 60, that strategy backfires fast. It's not about hiding your hair anymore, it's about styling it with intention. And honestly, that one mindset shift changed everything for me. Because when you stop styling out of fear and start styling with clarity, your whole face lifts. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through 4 smart, visual techniques that work with your hair's natural texture, not against it. We'll talk cuts, color, lift knot volume, and how to make your style last past lunchtime without carrying half the salon in your purse. So, if your goal is elegant hairstyles for women over 60 that don't scream trying too hard but whisper, I've still got it, you're in the right place. But here's a little heads up. What you think is helping your hair might actually be the very thing weighing it down. Let's get into it. Let's kick things off with the real game changer, the cut. Now I want you to take a look at the screen. On the left, we've got what most of us think helps long, straight, thin hair hanging past the shoulders. It's familiar. It feels safe. But let's be honest, it's not doing us any favors. See how it drags the face down? It clings to the scalp, makes the hair look even thinner, and the ends? Flat, lifeless, no movement. Now shift to the right side. That's what I call intentional. The length stops right around the collarbone light enough to lift, but still soft and feminine. And look at the ends, they're not blunt or choppy. They've been point cut for texture. That little trick makes your hair look fuller without looking forced. Here's where a lot of women get nervous. They think layers are the enemy, that they'll make things look stringy or thin. But in truth, the right layers, especially face-framing ones, do the opposite. They lift the eye, soften the jaw, and add shape where you need it most. Let me tell you about Barbara. She walked into my salon with what she called her security blanket, hair long, lifeless, and impossible to style. 5 inches later, she looked like she'd had a mini facelift, and she knew it. Her eyes looked brighter, her smile showed up sooner. And here's a tiny truth bomb. The longer your hair gets, the shorter your features appear. I know, it feels counterintuitive, but length can drag you down literally. If your thin hair over 60 feels limp and invisible, it might not be your hair, it might just be the wrong cut. But don't think a great cut is enough to save your look, because the wrong color even on a perfect cut can undo everything. Let's talk about that next. Let's move on to color, because trust me, this might be the sneakiest way your thin hair is getting sabotaged. Most women think color is just about covering grays or brightening things up. But the wrong shade. It'll make thin hair look even thinner, especially when it creates too much contrast between your hair and your scalp. I once had a client, Lillian, who went jet black to feel striking. The problem? Her scalp also felt striking. The contrast was so harsh it practically spotlighted every thin patch she was trying to hide. She didn't look bold, she looked like her hair was painted on. Here's the shift. Dimension over drama. Instead of one solid color, go for something that blends within 2 shades of your natural tone. Think soft highlights, lowlights, or a technique called color melting, where your grays, base color, and accents all blend together like watercolor. It adds visual texture without screaming, "Hey look, I dyed my hair." And gray? It's not the enemy. In fact, if you've embraced it, a few subtle lowlights in your original shade can bring back depth without looking fake. Gray hair tends to go flat and reflect light in a dull way, but when you layer in tone even just a little, creates soft shadows that mimic fullness. Think of it like contouring for your hair, gentle highlights and lowlights that shape and lift the overall silhouette. Here's something most people don't realize. Flat, single-tone hair can make your whole face appear wider and more tired. When the hair has no contrast, your features lose definition. But add in the right tone sand, suddenly, your cheekbones wake up. When color is done right, people don't think, "Nice dye job." They think, "Wow, your hair looks great." And they can't quite put their finger on why. And that's the sweet spot. Effortless, dimensional, and quietly elegant. But here's the thing. No amount of great color can save a style that falls flat by noon. Want to know the biggest reason why that happens? Let's talk styling next. And spoiler, it has nothing to do with more hairspray. Now let's get into styling, because if you're still reaching for a teasing comb and a full can of hairspray, we need to talk. I had a woman once, Nancy, 72, still a firecracker, who said, "If I can't hear my hair crackling, it's not holding." The problem? Her hair was holding, flat to her head. And that's the twist no one talks about. More product doesn't equal. More volumate equals more weight. Here's the shift we need to make. We don't want volume, we want lift. Volume says, "I'm trying to make it bigger." Lift says, "I know what I'm doing." So here's how you get it. Start with towel-dried hair. Not soaking wet water weighs everything down. Then apply a lightweight root-lifting mousseinate from scalp to ends like shampoo, but just at the roots. A quarter-size amount is plenty. Trust me. Then grab your round brush, but forget the old-school method of wrapping the whole section and blasting heat like it's 1987. Instead, lift small sections straight up from the root. Place the brush underneath and direct your blow dryer upward. Always upward. And here's a mini reveal most people overlook. Your hair sets its shape as it cools, not as it heats. So don't move on until the section is completely cool. That one step can make the difference between lift that lasts and style that vanishes before breakfast. Once you're done, flip your head upside down. Give it a gentle shake with your fingers and let gravity do its thing. You'll get natural movement, soft shape, and a style that looks polished, not overworked. Oh, hand, skip the helmet of hairspray. That freeze and forget approach might have worked in the 80s, but today, it crushes all the lift you just created. Because modern hair doesn't hold still, it floats. But here's the catch. Even a perfect blowout can fade fast if your finishing touches undo all that good work. So, before we wrap things up, let's talk about how to make that style last without turning your hair into a crunchy sculpture. Let's talk about finishing touches, because this is where a lot of great styling gets quietly undone. Most women either go all in with product like they're icing a cake, or they skip it entirely and hope for the best. But for thin hair over 60, product isn't about quantity, it's about placement. Here's what I tell my clients. Your hands are your best styling tool, especially if you know what to put on them. Let's start with hairspray, but not the full head mist that leaves your hair stiff and your bathroom floor sticky. Instead, lift small sections at the crown. Hold the can about 6 inches away and give a short burst right at the roots. That's the only place you need. Real hold, everything else should stay touchable. And now, texture. Take a small amount of texturizing cream or spray. Spritz it on your palms, not directly on your hair. Rub your hands together like you're warming them up, then gently scrunch it into your mid-lengths and ends. This gives separation, soft hold, and that undone but elegant finish that looks effortless but isn't. Here's the secret most people miss. Styling thin hair isn't about locking it down. It's about keeping it alive. The more flexible your hair stays, the longer it moves, and the younger it looks. Midday touch-ups? Skip the brush. Brushes flatten things. Instead, carry a travel-size texture mist and just finger fluff. You're not trying to redo your hair, you're just waking it up. And let's be honest, if you're still carrying around the same jumbo can of hairspray you've had since 2009, it might be time for a breakup. Because the real power in great styling isn't in the product, it's in the restraint. But here's the final and most overlooked shift of all. It's not just about what you do with your hair. It's how you feel about it. Let's talk about that. All right, this last piece isn't about your hair, exactly. It's about what happens when you stop styling to hide and start styling to own it. I once had a client named Doreen. She was 69, elegant, put together, but every time we talked about her hair, she'd say, "I just want to make it look like it used to." And I get it. We all carry versions of ourselves that felt familiar, effortless, beautiful. But here's the emotional twist that shifted everything for hair and for so many women I work with. That old version of your hair, it belonged to a different version of you. Trying to recreate it not only made her feel stuck, it made her feel older, because every morning she was chasing a reflection that no longer fit. So we reframed the goal. Thin hair doesn't need to pretend to be thick. It needs to look intentional. And that small shift, it opened up everything. She went from fighting her texture to enhancing it, from hiding her scalp to embracing movement, from chasing what was to styling for who she is now. Because the truth is, some of the most stylish women over 60 have fine, even sparse hair, but it's cut, colored, and styled in a way that says, "Yes, this is me, and I'm not hiding." And when that shift happens, when you stop styling out of fear and start styling with clarity, you look different. Not because your hair changed, but because you did. The scarf you wear? Not to cover up, but to express. The sleek, tucked back look? Not to disappear, but to define. The texture, the softness, the lift? All deliberate, all yours. Because the hair you have today is part of the woman you are now. And that woman, she deserves to be seen clearly, stylishly, and unapologetically. But how do you bring it all together, cut, color, styling, and mindset into something you can actually start doing tomorrow morning? Let's wrap it up. So let's bring it all together. We've covered the 4 key shifts that truly change how thin hair behaves after 60. First, a purposeful cut knot, one that drags your face down, but one that lifts it up. Second, color that adds dimension and softness, not harsh contrast or flatness. Third, styling for lift, not volume, because movement is always more modern than stiffness. And fourth, the most powerful shift of all, a mindset that says, "This is me now, and I like her." Here's what I hope lands with you most. None of these changes are about pretending to be younger. They're about showing up with presence, with clarity, with style that matches who you are not, who you were trying to be 20 years ago. And the biggest compliment you can get? It's not, "You look younger." It's, "You look like yourself, but better." So if you're feeling inspired but maybe a little overwhelmed, don't worry. You don't have to do it all at once. Start small. Maybe it's trimming an inch or two to lighten the shape. Maybe it's replacing that decade-old hairspray with something softer. Or maybe it's simply looking in the mirror tomorrow and thinking, "This is what I have, and I can make it beautiful." And if this video gave you one new idea, one new way to approach your hair, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community. There are so many of us out here rediscovering what style means after 60, and it's a journey best taken together. And when you're ready for the next step, make sure you watch How to Choose the Perfect Haircut for Your Face Shape After 60. Because trust me, when the cut fits your features, everything else falls into place. Until next time, keep it light, keep it lifted, and always remember, style has no expiration date.